Dakonyek, Muja. How do they say co-wife in your language? Most likely, the connotations are not positive. In the Luo language, Dakonyek means the woman who is steeped in jealousy. Nyeko means to spoil. Therefore, a co-wife is seen as that person who comes to start trouble in the home. And there is recognition through African languages that co-wives are indeed a problematic situation, and that it is not business as usual when there is polygamy. The Dakonyek, Bino Nyeko, she comes to spoil, she comes to change things. The Muja stirs envy, because the word Muja actually means Obuja, envy deep down in your heart, because polygamy is a situation where women are usually scampering, competing for the love of the prize, a man. Here at Hide the Myths, we exist to challenge these patriarchal notions, to question them, but also to talk about how women survive in a system that was never built for them. Today, we are at the Sunshine Kitchen, and we are going to talk about how women over the years have survived polygamy, how they continue to survive polygamy, but also how they have challenged constructions of polygamy and the ways in which it has been thrust upon them. I am here with special guest, Rose Wachikona, a friend of mine, a sibling of mine from way back in the day, a sister in the struggle who has done a lot of important work on polygamy, and she'll tell you more about that herself. And I'm here with Sophie Chagulani, who is also a sister in the struggle, who has done important work on issues concerning women, but also who has lived experience as a feminist and as a Muslim woman. We also have my usual suspects, my co-hosts, who join us every week to share how we've hidden the myths over different generations, which is a unique aspect of Hide the Myths. We talk to people from different walks of life with different experiences. I am here with Margaret Onduri Katono, who happens to be my mother, and she's always here to bring you the perspective of what happens in the day, of what happened back in the day and how things have been changing over time. I am here with Maggie, who says she is still finding herself, is in her last year of high school, and likes to talk about the ways that the feminist issues are seen through a younger lens. Right away, I will go on and open this to my guests to tell us who they are and how they view polygamy in the first place. I will start with you, Margaret.
Hello. I'm glad to be here in this second episode of Hide the Myth. My name is Margaret Onduri Katono. I am an administrator by profession, and I'm a mother, I say by birth, because I always say, having been the second born out of 11 children, you are very responsible from the very beginning. You are the one to make sure the tea is cool for the little ones. They are safe when they go to the well. They have showered and they have gone to bed. I'm glad to join this, to host this today as a co-host in Join the Meet, or Hide the Meet. I'm happy to be here, and I welcome our guests, Sophie and Rose. You're welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. And over to you, Katono, Maggie.
Hi, my name is Margaret Katono, and today I would like to talk about polygamy. First of all, before we get into that, I always tell you guys that I love to shake tables, I love to debate, and I love to have the hard conversations. So today we are going to have a hard conversation on what polygamy means in society. It's not only in Africa, but across the world. And polygamy, before we get into it, is a gender neutral term. There are breakdowns of it. There is polyandry and polygamy, but polygamy is a gender neutral term. Polyandry is a man having a woman having multiple husbands, and polygamy is is a man having multiple wives, and there is a variation of it known as polyamory. And today I'm going to give you what I know, give you the variations, and explain to you everything as best as I can. Yeah. I welcome our guests as well. I'd love to hear what they think. I'm a bit outnumbered, but that doesn't matter. It's okay. Yeah. So welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Over to you, Rose.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. First and foremost, my name is Rose Wachikona. I work with Women's Pro Bono Initiative. I am a lawyer by profession. I am a feminist, many times radical, sometimes a bad one, but by and large, I've lived through feminist values almost all my life. I come from a family that my grandfather was polygamous. He had 8 wives, collectively throughout his life. Some ran away, others died, but altogether he had 8 wives. He had 44 children, and at my last count, we were 120 grandchildren. So I am very conversant with polygamy through lived experience, but also through the work that I do in advancing laws and policies that impact and that deconstruct gender and work for women. My aim is to make our society work for women through the legal lens. So that's what I do day to day. So I'm looking forward to the conversation. And also our institution sued the government of Uganda, asking the Constitutional Court to outlaw polygamy. We were unsuccessful, but we'll have more discussions as we proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. We look forward to really delving into that case. But before we do that, Sophie, over to you.
Thank you so much. My name is Sophie Chagulanyi. I am a lawyer as well. I'm a Muslim woman. I actually convene Muslim women lawyers to have conversations like this one, because there's a perception out there that there is injustice by just being a Muslim, which is actually, I don't want to say a wrong perception, but I think it's a different thinking. You need to really understand what it is to be a Muslim woman. And I hope through this show and many other shows, I'll be able to bring that out. And also discuss this hard subject, polygamy, because with Islam, polygamy is one of those practices that is allowed, but it's not obligated. So the bit of not obligated is what many don't understand and how it comes in. And I think I'll be able to bring that perspective. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me for this show of Hide the Myth itself. And I hope you can use it to really help a number of women out there come out of their injustices by having different perspectives and thinkings. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sophie. And I am your host, Patience Akumu. I am a lawyer, I am a writer, I am a proud African feminist. I love to connect with women, I love to visit kitchens. We look forward to you one day inviting us to your kitchen and talking about the things that matter most to you, because here at Hide the Myth, we are about talking about our issues as women in a tone that works for us, through a lens that works for us. Whenever you see us gathered by a kitchen, you know that we are going to start trouble. You know we are going to cook up mischief. You know that we are going to spark change. Ma'am, I will start with you as somebody who usually brings the historical perspective to our kitchen table. And also knowing that you grew up in a home that was monogamous, and then you married into a home where polygamy was the norm. How did you first perceive polygamy when you walked into this situation, and how did polygamy play out?
Thank you, Patience. Yes, I was born in a family, a monogamous family. I've never known even another child that is my father's. My father is alive, he's 93 years of age. My mother is alive, she's I think 88 years of age. They are still together. And as husband and wife wedded, and I've never heard about a child outside of that. Fortunately or unfortunately, when I got married into a family that is polygamous. My father-in-law had 3 official wives and another wife at the side somewhere, who was also recognized as a wife. So when I first reached there, I wondered how things were done, because the first thing is we're brought up in this family where when our father was coming back from wherever, from town, from work, from town he would bring maybe a kilogram of sugar, some bread, maybe a kilogram of meat. Would naturally run to pick that. My father was a teacher, he's now retired, a strict disciplinarian, so we knew that once he's there, we run and pick whatever he has come with. And we take it maybe to the kitchen. So my first question was, when the old man comes home with a kilogram of meat or sugar, and you go and run towards him and pick, you don't know which kitchen. Is it to the first wife? Is it to the second wife? Is it to the third wife? Where are you taking this meat that dad has brought home? Because each woman had their own small kitchen. They were not cooking together. So that was what puzzled me. But somehow, it works. You go, they were not normally going. The man would come and say, take this to Mama so-and-so. He gives a child, take this to Mama so-and-so. But I found it really odd that people can live like that, because half the time I think I would be lost. Then 2, this person, my father-in-law, with the Japs are not like Baganda, that you are going to get married and build for your other wife 1 kilometer away, half kilometer away. Back home there was just one house with different rooms. Remember, there was no ceiling. This is home, village house, no ceiling. So each woman is in their separate rooms. You have your room, I have my room. There's a shared sitting room. This is your co-wife. Would it really work for you?
I think it's important to note that you can't say just Baganda. You have to say like Japs do it that way.
But it's a good example because
because it is safer.
And those were rich Baganda.
Exactly, I wanted also to come in with that.
So Baganda.
No.
The poor ones, they would live in the same house.
My grandfather, I think, is the best example I can give. My grandfather, I think, was a polygamous man, and I'm happy to say that he was not Muslim. And in his house, there were 3 wives, one of them being my grandmother. The others were also my grandmothers. But now, at the time when I interacted with my grandfather, there were 2, but in the same house. And then one went away and one stayed. So I think I had a longer time with the one that stayed, but there was a time when there were 2 in one house. So it's not actually a Baganda thing that they have the opportunity to construct another house a kilometer away. No, it's only those that have money. And I think anyone that can have money can have the ability to construct another house for another wife. But if you don't have that ability, they are all in your one house.
Polygamy can be a complex situation.
Yes.
And it places women in a position where you're now picturing, you have to balance things. And this is especially concerning because in some cases there is no ceiling. And the man has to move from room to room every day. And the women are subjected to the sounds and the imagination of what could be going on with the other wife. And yet, when Women's Pro Bono Initiative challenged the practice of polygamy in 2021, saying that it had a serious emotional effect, Women's Pro Bono Initiative argued that polygamy is inherently cruel to women because it subjects them to uncomfortable situations. In fact, they argued that under Article 24 of the Constitution of Uganda, it provides for freedom from torture, inhuman and degrading treatment. And it also goes on to say, this is a non-derogable right, which means that there is no circumstance where it is acceptable to subject women to the kind of torture, inhuman, degrading treatment that is polygamy. Women's Pro Bono Initiative also argued that Under Article 31 of the Constitution, every person has a right to found a family, and that at the institution of marriage, they should have equal rights. During marriage, they should have equal rights. And at the end of marriage, they should have equal rights. Which means that a situation where men, rather than women, can have multiple partners is inherently unequal. And yet, the Constitutional Court missed an opportunity to pronounce itself. It rejected arguments that polygamy is cruel, and in fact said that it is cultural, it is religious, and they upheld the practice. They also had very many other decisions about the possibility of women being able to enter into relationships that where they have multiple partners. Like Maggie was earlier saying, it's polygamy is not exclusive to men alone, but women can be in polygamous relationships. If you are in a polygamous situation, you do not want to log out of Hide the Meat. You are in the company of almost a quarter of married women, because what the statistics tell us is that quarter of the women who are married in Uganda are in polygamous relationships. Polygamy is prevalent across Africa. Polygyny is prevalent across Africa, with men having multiple partners. In places like West Africa, it goes up to almost 50% of relationships being polygamous. Within East Africa, Uganda is at around 23%, but within East Africa, we have brothers, sisters who go all the way up to 30%. So polygamy is a reality for many women. They go into it, it's thrust upon them some way or the other. You might not even know that you are in a polygamous relationship, but you are in the relationship. It follows you. I will go now to my guest Sophie before we delve into this beautiful case that Women's Pro Bono Initiative filed. Do you think that polygamy is inherently cruel? Is there a situation where polygamy may not be cruel?
I think we need to dig deep down to really understand that. And I think, yes, there are situations where polygamy is not actually cruel. And these are lived experiences of some women, but not all women. And really, it has a lot to do with the economic status of that particular family. Because when we talk about polygamy, I think we need to also have demystified. Are we looking at the legally accepted or the way of life? Because when you find many women, getting back to the statistics before I can answer you, Paige, is that what you've registered as a statistic is actually the smallest. Many women are married and they think they are in monogamous relationships. Yes. But there is a chain of relationships their spouses are involved in. And I don't know whether we want to call that polygamy or not, because this chain enjoys the same right this same woman enjoys when they are in their monogamous marriage. Yes. Their children, not one, not two, but a real family, beyond, of course, their mother. And there is a semblance of a father, a real father figure in terms of responsibilities, in terms of duties, but also in terms of relationships, creating relationships with the mother, but also with the children. And one wonders, where do men get that time, you know? But he can have like 3 of such relationships, and he's maneuvering all of them. And interestingly enough, you could find that none of those is actually legally recognized as a marriage. Okay, neither traditionally in our cultures or civil or even under any marriage law, and that they are living and 30 plus years, you know. So I don't know what we would want to call that, but I want to bring that kind of relationship into the whole conversation so that you crown it all.
Market ground. You know, people often think it's for Muslim women or it's for women in the village, but like you say, you could be in a polygamous relationship, subjecting yourself to a situation, and you are not aware, and that's why the conversation is important. Women don't even talk about polygamy because we bury our heads in the sand, and you pretend, oh, I have the ring, and yet, in fact, so it's quite interesting.
And we even argue it out that I am the first wife, and you know. Now, when it comes to Muslims, let me give this. And I'm speaking more from what I have seen, and I can relate with that and say that to some extent the level of cruelty also changes. So in families that are economically stable, where you have divisions in terms of time with the husband, because it's very clear that with the Muslims, they even divide time, that out of the 7 days of a week, if a man has 3 wives, who divide the time accordingly and equally. That's the requirement as per the religious laws, the Sharia that we follow. But injustice comes where humanly, I mean, it's difficult to love different people the same way. The way I share my love with you is not the same way I share my love with her or the other. So it changes. So there's a human connotation around loving and sharing our love. So definitely it will not equal to the condition as it is by Islam. Because with Islam, before you even marry, there is a requirement that you must seek consent from your existing wife or wives, you know. And where you don't seek that consent, there must be really justifiable reasons for not seeking that consent. Justifiable reasons, for instance, your first wife is mentally unstable, you know.
She's arbitrarily denying you that consent.
Or she's arbitrarily denying you that consent. But there's a conditionality, and that's where injustice should be checked. When our husbands seek to go into polygamous marriages, do they seek this consent? And where they don't, do they give justifiable reasons? Where all of those don't exist, then that's injustice. Number 2, the other condition is that you must treat them the same way. Now, materially, and that's where the economics, I think, comes in, it may be possible, you know, because if it's constructing a house, you can construct a house. If it's buying a car, you can buy a car. Buying food, you can buy food and distribute it. And in that context, what your grandfather, not the grandfather, but the other father-in-law would have come with, like, the number of wives, the uveras of meat, kilograms of meat, equal in the same way, you know. Because here you find, in the Islamic setup, you find that the husband, if they are shopping, for instance, they shop the same things. And for those that are economically able, they can do that. Now, the question is on the emotion. And who checks the emotion? You know, because your husband can actually be at home, but he's not at home. Your husband can be seated here with you, but he's not here with you. You know, there is no emotional connectivity. And that's also a conditionality. And that's where injustice comes in, because it's mentally disturbing. You know, you are here. Yes, it's my turn to be with you out of the 5 days in a week. My turn has come. But there's no conversation even. You know, you're not even eating my food. I mean,
just showed up to tick
that's
the box.
Enough. You ticked a box actually, but then the time passes and then you move to the other where you're emotionally connected. So I think that bit of emotion is something that we need to check, because that's where the injustice really happens. Now, those are where it's economically possible. Now, where it's not economically possible, we come to all these sorts of injustices. And these are the many, you know. It's not possible to look after multiple homes, you know, in terms of time, resources, the money itself. You know, you have 5 children in this family, 5 in the other, 5 in the other. Certainly there's going to be an imbalance in terms of spreading the resource that you have. Even with Muslim marriages, that's the same thing. So it's not very different from the others that are not Muslim. And I think for me, this is where the injustice is. And when we talk about outlawing polygamy, we need to look at it from this context. Yes, and you know, even when the marriage happened and there was ability, for instance, economically, to sustain 3, you cannot guarantee that, because after time, the economics can change, you know, and you get back into poverty, because anyway, you're spreading a small resource that you had. In Africa, especially here, it's more possible, you see? So I think for me, those are all the injustices that we need to speak to, because at the end of the day, there is psychological effect, there is physical as well, because, I mean, physically, there are quite a number of things that we need to bring out, and we could be able to bring out. And they are very challenging in such marriages. And children, when it comes to children, that's a different conversation. They all have their different perspectives, but they are affected most, you know, because in a setup where your father comes only 2 days in a week, you know, and that's the only time you have with your father. But that's the same time your mother also wants to have time with her husband. So you're struggling for that time. But the father, on the other hand, when they come, they in their planning or setup or They are not with you. You know how when the father is at home, the things you do with your father, you don't have all that access to your father. So you find that a child grows up, but they see a father, there is no relationship with the father. So all those are the injustices that polygamy brings, even with Islam setups. Yeah.
Thank you, Sophie. I have honestly never in my life seen a man, an African man, ask for consent or heard of an African man ask for consent to have another wife. People always say, I saw it on social media, he had gone and gotten married, and yet religion is very clear, Islam is very clear on these circumstances. Some scholars have also argued that, in fact, Islam did not come to promote polygamy. Muhammad said that people should have 4 wives because people were having too many, and so it was meant to reduce the number of wives. But so that people have at least 4, is this
No.
an accurate position?
Well, if we bring in the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, I think it's a different context. He married women for purposes, and they're very clear. He married a widow to only support the widow. He married an entrepreneur to really improve his economics, So he married also for love, There are those that he married for love. And even within his own setup, his wives alone, there are those that we know that were more I wouldn't want to say that they were feminist, but their actions, if you put them on the table and reevaluate them against feminist principles, you would say they were actually feminist. So his wife Aisha is the icon of feminism within his own polygamous setup alone. So it's not really to help reduce the number of women that are out there, not really. It's really for particular reasons, and you could use that example of his marriages.
So what some scholars have argued is that Muhammad wasn't saying marry more. He was saying marry few, and if you must, marry 4. So is it obligated? What does Islam say?
No, it's not obligated. Because even with Muslim setups, you find those that are saying, I will only marry 1 woman. It is allowed, but it's not an obligation. Not every man should marry 4 women, not at all.
So is 4 the maximum, or can you do more than 4?
And that's where we also need to check, because you find one that actually has married 4, but is still seeking out.
Yes.
That's an injustice still. So 4 years, religious is prescribed to be the maximum, only if you can meet all the conditionalities. But the conditionalities, when you evaluate them, you find that there's those that are impossible. How can you equally share emotional attachment? Can you share emotional attachment equally? Humans?
So here's a story that I had when I asked around. A man went to the prophet that I'm sorry about how you refer to him. Is that okay? Yeah. I told him, I have so much money. I need to find where to put it. And he said, okay, marry. And then he married and everything was good for a bit. And he went back and said, okay, I still have this much money. Can I, what next? What do I do? And he said, okay, marry again. Until it happened the first time. I do not know the truth to this story, but is that how it went?
I'm not so sure.
I asked.
I have not interfaced with it. Islam is so authoritative.
Yeah.
We pick guidance from of course, the Quran as the biggest authority, and anything that should be done in Islam is in the Quran.
Okay.
The interpretations is what the Prophet lived his life, how he lived his life. And then that's where you get the different interpretations. But now, the understanding itself is so low. Not many people understand the Quran and what it meant. So you find that there are varying interpretations. And then, of course, the sects, you find the sects. This sect understands it different. This sect understands it differently. Yeah. But I've not interfaced with that kind of example, so I wouldn't know. What I know is that the Prophet's marriages alone were for particular reasons. He married for compassion. He married to support widows. He married to build alliances, because he also lived in a time of war, so he used to marry to build alliances. So if marriages are tailored around that, maybe we could look at it from that
angle. But still there was a bit of marrying for compassion and also marrying for love, you know. So, and looking at that alone, then you look at how did the wives behave. You know, there were those that were pious, subservient, and etc. But then there were those that were outspoken, would challenge and argue, even argue out the prophet himself. But at the same time, their level of intelligence was to the level of even understanding the Quran more and helping other believers, including men, to interpret it and understand it. And there were women. So what does that mean? That means that even with his wives, there were those that were above the level of pious, the way it is painted, that you don't challenge authority, you don't speak out, you're only there. You know, it really challenges that notion, you know.
Yeah, and I wanted to give an example of the different interpretations of the Quran, which are usually called the hadiths. There is the one on FGM. No, so these interpretations are always guided by culture and the cultural practices of an area. So you'll find in areas like Somalia, Ethiopia, they'll have hadiths that say that FGM is the norm, that it makes it almost a religious and a cultural practices. But then other Muslims elsewhere, their hadiths do not agree with that. So whenever you're reading those interpretations, you have to also understand the cultural context of a particular area, because they are very much informed with that. And we don't see that more than the way we look at FGM and how it's interpreted through Islam.
Thank you, Rose. Now, colonial constructions of marriage often dictated that it should be monogamous. It should be taken under, you know, the church or some form of colonial laws, civil marriage. And they envisaged one man, one woman. African culture came in, and our reality was that many men had several women. There are also religions like Islam that recognize that you can have, as a man, you can have more than one wife, and this is acceptable given the conditions that you must follow in line with the religion. The real issue comes because religion, culture are all relative. And while there are women who are happily polygamous, this must also be recognized. They consent. Some women even say, you know, like the cliche goes, why should I take the entire cow when I can just get a little beef and from the butcher and eat it when I want? So there are women who are happily polygamous. But by and large, it's a really difficult situation because inequalities play out in polygamous relationships, and this places an emotional strain, like Sophie was saying, an economic strain on the family, but also on the members of the family. I can't even imagine my husband coming in for a few days and my children. There's just no time. Who does the homework? When will we do the homework with our children? Homework is all week, but I have you for 2 days. It's also a special parenting burden. And we see it in the lives of our children. And now over to you, Maggie. In your interface with children or younger people who are in polygamous situationships, what do they tell you? What are they like? How does polygamy affect the lives of younger people?
So before I say anything, I would like to say that I want to give you a definition. I think we speak a lot about feminism, but I really want to give you the picture. Feminism is the ability to choose. That's as plain and simple as I can put it. So I'm going to give you several perspectives and of course my own. 10 in 10 girls that are my age or younger do not agree. They said I would never. What? No. 10 in 10. I asked many more people, but there's the statistic. 10 in 10 girls said no,
so
thank you.
You spoke to 10 girls and they all said
No way.
No.
I spoke to,
how old were they? What was their age range?
let's say a little bit younger than I am, maybe 17, 18, some 19. So they said no. All right, 5 in 10 boys said they wouldn't do it.
Oh, wow.
That's a big number. Yeah, it's okay, very, very sad. Okay, but now it's their reasoning that was Not because, I mean, the kids, nah, they're not thinking about that. They're thinking it's too much work. It's just a lot of work. Apparently, like, I'm going to quote, one man is already so much. Imagine a second one. So that's their reasoning. I mean, it's fair. It's fair. I understood it. I said, okay, fine, that's a fair point to make. Others reasoned religion. And I want to preface by saying I'm Christian, yes, but I hardly ever make arguments based off of religion. I usually don't, because religion is relative, as you put it. Mm-hmm. It is something that varies from area to area, so I do not make arguments based off of religion, quite, like, hardly, you know. But I do believe in God, and I am a Christian, and I will not impose that. This is just purely, as it is. So some said, okay, I won't do it. Those 5, Christianity, it's too much work, and it's just insane. I mean, that's too greedy. Right now, in comparison, the reasoning for the girls, it's greedy, it's yucky. Just like, they weren't really as structured as you would put it. Like, oh, this, that. No, that's not what's in their heads. Their heads, it's too much work. It's like jealousy as a factor. Like, those were the reasons. But then the other 5 boys were like, I mean, if my wife said yes. So I tell the person, okay, what about your kids? You're going to have many kids from many wives. And then what about the neglect? What about all that? And then they told me that that can happen with 1 kid. That's a fair point. You can neglect 1 child also. But isn't it a bit, I don't know, like 5 kids and 1 child? The difficulty levels, At least 1 child you can find one, but 5 from different women, different places, or in the same house. It's a bit more difficult. But that's the 5. Then the rest said, well, if I can do it, I know. And then one of them said that if I can do it, then women should be able to do it. Now that's the general consensus I have found. These are statistics I collected on my own. I walked to people and I asked them. Now there is a lot more, but for respect, I don't want to, expose people like that. I'm just gonna give you what the headlines. I have to, censor it a bit. But then I go to people and I continue asking them, do your parents have 1 wife? And so, okay, no. One of them said no. Told me the story and everything, and the concern was I rarely see my dad. I rarely see my dad. You see exactly what everyone's like. I rarely do see my dad, and I was like, okay, that was done. That was the first case. The second case, I spoke to someone else, a boy. Spoke to someone else. He told me my father does have 1 wife. I can give you perspective of other people. He's Muslim. Now, I don't want people to feel targeted that I went to everybody and I asked them. And so he said that jealousy is a big, ugly emotion. And he told me that it's impossible in your own mind. And these are people who are, let's say my age, like this is how they're interpreting it. Said it's impossible to give the same kind of, it's impossible to give that kind of, in terms of money, in terms of, like, okay, you can throw a cat everything, but at the end of the day, you brought people into this world. You have to be responsible for those people. You see what I'm getting at? You see, every time you have a child, this is to all of us, every time you have a child, you have a responsibility.
You're about to have children.
No! Let's not go there. Yes, but
stick to the parents.
You already there. Every time you bring a child into this world, you have a responsibility towards said child. So it's do not treat them like, I brought you to this world. Whose fault was that? It was a choice that you made. You sat down and said, okay, I'm going to carry for 9 months and bring it to this one. So you have a responsibility. So he said that if a person has a UBZ, everyone has to have a UBZ. UBP, everyone has to have a UBP. But he said his family is very religious. So this is just because his family is very religious. Otherwise, people don't practice it like that. So I've given you 2 things. I've given you jealousy, and I've given you just plain neglect.
How are these children? I'm especially interested in the person who said, I am in a polygamous situation. I rarely see my father. When you are talking to this person, what was the emotion? How does this person express?
The way she said it, I think she seemed a bit sad. I think she seemed genuinely sad. But again, not sad enough that it would be like, okay, sadness and normalcy. Like, I guess that's it. I'm a bit devastated, but oh well, that's my life. You understand? So now, that is it. Like, it is normalized that this is a normal thing in their lives. And that is it. So we bring it to that point of, it is a very, like, I don't want to say it's a, like, for me, I have two perspectives, of course. I have one where it's okay and I have one where it's bad. I'm giving you the perspective where I think it's a bad thing. You see, you cannot have 15 kids. You can't have 44 kids. You can't have 101 kids, and you expect each and every one of them to have the same. And I am a child, and I can tell you that we do need our parents. We need someone to call. But if you're saying, oh, can I call my dad? And it's like, no, he won't pick up.
You have to introduce yourself. You are who? I am this one of this mother.
Who is your mother? We are not with you today.
And furthermore, I found that people actually do die from people commit suicide. From this kind of
It's
thing.
emotionally draining.
Yeah, people
mental
do
health.
kill themselves. And I got this firsthand because I didn't want to come speaking when I didn't know. And mind you, if she married into a polygamous, so that means my great granddad was polygamous. She's my grandmother. Was polygamous. And my great grandmother was deemed a witch. She was a witch.
She was the most loved.
No, not even.
The least loved can be the witch.
So I usually,
Or even the most loved, they bewitched the husband.
Oh,
Yeah.
my friends will bewitch the fellow.
So I usually joke about this. I usually tell my friends, I think my great grandmother was a witch. They used to call her witch in the village. It's funny. 100% it's her. But the things that she did. Now I'm gonna go there. I know they're going to see me, but it's okay. I'm going to go there. She did horrible things to the first wife. Horrible! Like, plain evil. Like, purely out of fighting for a man who wasn't even the prize. Let me be honest. He wasn't the prize. I don't want to speak ill of him. He's dead. But the things that she did, to this day, the ripples are still felt within the family. This is how many generations after. I do not have close for this. You see, people as we are here, this is my family. My mother's side is of course different, but from this side, this is who we are. This is the end. I don't talk to other people. Our family is very beautiful. That is my experience. Now, for me, I didn't even grow up in it directly, but I can see the ripple effects of what she did through and how these other grandkids. Now, for me, I'm a great grandkid, but the grandkids have people.
The children, start with the children.
The children, they, again, normalized. Now, because something is normalized, I want to reiterate that because something is normalized and this is right. That is something that everyone, because it is allowed, doesn't mean it is okay. Because the law says, okay, but the kids, my grandparents, I want, again, grandparents, I'm the great-grandchild. My grandparents, they are normal. This is their life, and I can't even blame them. They grew up in the same household. I mean, the households are just this close together. Just house years, like that. And of course, they didn't have that many houses. This is 2025. I mean, in 19, whenever, they had just one house. So they grew up normally, and they are normal. However, some few of them still say, what your mom did to my mom was a bit crazy. And even me, I can tell you she was a little bit unhinged. She was a bit on the other side.
And she was called Akumu. But I promise I'm not unhinged.
Are you sure?
Okay, I'm happy.
Now we know.
Maggie, now we know why Akumu is a bit crazy. Maggie, what you say is profound. Sadness and normalcy. Polygamy places us women in a situation where we are sad. Even as I talk about it, I feel something in my chest. And yet we are supposed to accept it. It's normal. We live with it. We carry it.